Anyways, try number 2. We've been talking about clicking on buttons. We're talking about comparing the radius of the button and the distance from the center of the button to the mouse. And we found out last class that if the distance, which is symbolized by that green line here, hello, if that distance is less than the radius, then you can guarantee that the mouse is contained within that circle. You guys are going to be able to say this in your sleep. I've said it so many times, I bet you're just like, oh, the radius of the mouse must be bigger, blah, blah. It's gonna be great. Anyways, that was part 1 of the story. That's how you can figure out if the mouse is there. The other part of the story was, how do you register a click? You're clicking on the button. And so we did that. Whoops. I think it was this one. Yeah, we did it right here. Check it out. This is I guess actually we'll finish by saying this is sort of the if statement we used. So we found out about the dist function. And the way the dist function works is you are comparing, it tells you the distance between 2 points. Here's 1 point. That's the center of a button. I know it's the center of a button because look at this. Here's my ellipse with the same coordinates. See how that and that are matching up? Yeah. That's measuring the center of that circle to the mouse coordinates. If that's less than 40, which is the radius of our circle, right? It has a diameter of 80. We're checking to see if it's less than 40. Then we made the circles light up. So if I ran this, hey, look, I didn't save that part of it. Great. So if I run that, you can see that, hey, the mouse the circle knows it's being hovered over. And then we added something in to make sure we can make it click. We added in the void mouse released function. Mouse released. And void mouse released function is a special function in processing. It always happens whenever you click and release the mouse. And we didn't really get into it too much detail, but we're going to use that for some of our clicking stuff. Won't be so good for drawing though today, right? When you release the mouse, that's not when you start drawing. So we're going to have to learn something else for when we do the actual drawing the squiggly line, which is coming up. So we had void mouse released, and we'd use kind of similar stuff. We could say, for example, if the distance is less than 40 and we're releasing the mouse, then we can have some kind of consequence. We, last class, made it so that we could change the background. And we first started off with this. We started background 255, 0, 0. And that didn't really work too well, right? We ran it, and when we click on the button, it would flash red, but it didn't stay red. So what was the solution to that? Yeah, thanks, Mark. Yeah, so instead of having a separate background, which gets overridden by the draw function's background, because this background is happening every 60th of a second, right? Background white, background white, background white, background white. And then eventually we say background red, and then it just goes back to background white, background white, background white. So we have to actually change this background call. We have to make that change. And the way you make things change, the way you make functions change, is with variables. So we plugged in some variables here. And so we had an RGB variable, and we declared those as ints. We could make them all 255. Hey, here's my favorite way to make 3 variables all the same number. Ready for this? R equals G equals B equals 255. Whoa, that's pretty nice, eh? That's nice. It's all become 255 as a result. If I run that, we'll still see white background, because if all 3 of these numbers are 255, that'll make white. But I can change these values. I can make R, G, and B different numbers. So for example, when I click, instead of saying that, I could say R equals 255, G equals 0, B equals 0. So now I click and release the mouse. If it's inside of the circle, which I know because the distance between the center of the circle and the mouse is less than the radius, or it won't be. But if it is, then it'll set R to 255 and these other ones to 0, which then changes the background color permanently, because it affected this background call in our draw, which is like we've taken the circle and plugged it in to the background call with the variables. That was pretty fast. I don't know, how'd that go? Does that make sense, folks? If you weren't here yesterday, maybe we need a little bit more time. So that's okay. But we'll do it again. With that in mind, I invite you to make a new sketch, which you probably already did. We're going to make 2 buttons. We're going to make a black and white button. You can put them anywhere on the screen. And I invite you to do that right now. Let's do it in, let's say we have 5 minutes to make 2 buttons. Put in your void setup and void draw. I'll get you started. We won't make them tactile this time. We'll just skip that. We will make a void mouse released to make some buttons. And you can choose whatever size you want for this project. I'll choose 600 by 600. So make a black button and a white button. And then what we're going to do is we're going to see how to draw the sketch, and we'll figure out how to make the black and white buttons affect the sketch line that we click and drag with. Okay? Let's go ahead, try that out. And if you're not sure, at least just draw 2 circles, and I'll help you. Yours can look different than mine, by the way. Here's what I'm going to do. There's my sketch. Try to make that same thing happen. Don't do a background call, though. I recommend not doing a background call. Leave it just the original background. I'll tell you about that in a little bit. Notice I've left my mouse released function empty. We'll get back to that. Just get yourself a couple of circles. If you want to go rogue and make it like red and blue, I don't mind much. But black and white is a good place to be. Okay. So I'm going to ignore those buttons just for a minute, but we're kind of set up now for making a very simple sketch program. So now we got to figure out how to make a squiggly line. So when I click and drag the mouse, I would like a line to kind of be drawn upon the canvas, if you will. And the way we're going to do that is not with mouse released. Mouse released, that's not how you draw, right? You don't click and then release and then move the mouse. We need something where the mouse is being pressed to check and see what's going on with that. And so it turns out there is another special variable that we can use. We learned about mouse X and mouse Y last class. You know, those variables, they turned pink. They were pink because processing automatically updates their values. So we don't have to like set them or anything. Processing is filling them with the number that is the coordinate of the mouse. And so what we can do is find out about other special variables. Turns out there's one called mouse pressed. Check out that one. See, it turns pink? It's like, whoa, what are you doing there, buddy? But it is a legitimate variable. I'll show you how we can use it. Mouse pressed is a Boolean variable. We've seen ints and floats. This is a Boolean variable, which is a fancy way of saying it's a variable that's either true or false. Because you're either pressing a mouse button or you're not. And it counts for all the mouse buttons, or any of the mouse buttons. So any button, left or right, doesn't matter. But what we can do is inside of the draw function, we can put that in a little if statement. So I can say if mouse pressed equals true. And note the double equal sign. Technically, we don't actually have to say equals true. We could just say if mouse pressed. But if you're like kind of confused as to how that's working, you can check to see if it's true or not. Because mouse pressed is true or false, we could just make that the entire condition. That's entirely acceptable. Yeah, thanks. Oh, yeah, so if you want to say if not mouse pressed, The way to do it, this is totally not part of the curriculum, by the way, so don't worry about it too much. But you can put an exclamation mark on the end, on the front, sorry. And the way you pronounce that in computer science is not. So that would say if not mouse pressed. You could also say if mouse pressed equals false. If you really want to get confusing, you can say not equals true. And you're like double negativing yourself or something. But we don't want to get too fancy here. What do you guys prefer? Oh, yeah, Victoria?
Can you do the else?
You could, yeah, you could do if else. That would be a possibility. I think we'll just do if in this case. What else is a possibility? What do you guys like? Do you like mouse pressed equals true? Do you like just if mouse pressed? What do you think? You don't care? It's all good no matter what? Everyone's happy? I like this one because you can't, if you do this one here, you could accidentally only have one equal sign, and that doesn't work. Two equal signs is for comparing. Although that is good practice to remember that, I think it's better just not to make mistakes in the first place. So I'm going to make my closed brace here. This is where a lot of people go wrong, by the way. So many people have made, and we will continue to make mistakes as we learn, and that's totally fine. But the mistake that I see often made is people will open their brace and continue programming, and then they'll think that brace there is the closed brace. But that's the closed brace of the draw function. And so that's not actually it. So whenever I do my open brace, I immediately type my closed brace. See how I did the two right there? I type those in, and then I go back into my if statement. So what is the code to draw a line as we click and drag? Well, it's just going to be the line function. And watch, there's two more secret mouse variables that we can use. So processing keeps track of last frame's mouse coordinates as well as this frame's mouse coordinates. If we draw a line between where the mouse was last time and where it is now, and we keep on doing that over and over again, we'll end up drawing a squiggly line as the mouse moves. And it will only happen if the mouse button is being pressed, because that's what that variable is all about. So check it out. That variable is called pmousex. That stands for where was the line last frame? Last time the draw function was called. Where was it? And then I'm going to say pmousey. So that's going to be the start of the line. And the end of the line is going to be mousex and mousey. That's where it is now. So I can say where you were to where you are. And because it's being updated so quickly, right, 60 times a second, even though it's drawing straight lines, it will look quite squiggly and quite natural. So I'm going to go ahead and run that. Hopefully everyone can see okay. I'll move it over to the side as best I can. And check it out. If I click and drag, I get a line. Woo! And you might be like, wow, why isn't it a line? Like, why isn't it a straight line? So watch, if I go crazy, I'm going to click and drag the line like all over the place. And I'm going to go really fast. And do you see how it's like turning into lines? So how is this line here like created? Like if I zoom in, sorry to interrupt if you're like looking at the code. Like what is this line here? How did this line get formed? Well, it drew a line from where the mouse was last frame to where the mouse is in the current frame. And that's how you end up getting those lines. If you draw slow enough, it looks like a nice squiggly line. I tried to draw a bunny there. How did I do? How's that bunny? See, there's eye here. Bunnies have whiskers, right? There's a big ear. Yeah, there we go. Yeah, oh, I'll just move that out of the way so you can see it a little bit better. Woo! All right. So drawing lines actually turns out to be only a single line of code. A little bit more required, though. We're going to have, you know, choosing color and that kind of stuff. Does everybody feel okay about those set of built-in variables? Any questions about either mouse press, pmousex, pmousey, mousex, or mousey? There's like 5 of them. Nobody has a question about those? Okay. I mean, maybe you do and you're just being shy. And that's okay. You can ask me one-on-one. We'll just keep moving on, though. So that's how we do that. So next thing we're going to do is we're going to make it so that when we click these buttons, so it starts drawing black. But I want to click it so if I click on this one, it changes white when I draw this line. If I click on this one, it goes back to being black. Right now, it's only black. So how do we do this? So first of all, I want to introduce you to a new kind of variable. I don't think we've done this before. There's variables for colors. So we've had ints. Some of you found out about floats because you asked about like how do you do half of a pixel in animation and stuff. Booleans we found out about today a little bit. Mostly just been using ints, right? There's another one called color. And it turns orange, just like int does, so you know it's a built-in type. And then I can make some names for colors. I can say color white, color black. Eventually I want to have red and green and so on. I won't use these right now, but I would like you guys to, today, investigate, I guess, at least 6 colors. Have at least 6 colors plus black and white. I don't think, technically black and white colors, or are they something else? Someone, shades? Thank you. Thank you. Shades. That's like obvious knowledge to people who are in art, I think. So white, not to me, I don't know these things. So anyway, so white and black plus 6 additional colors. And guess what? We can give them values, so you can say fill with white, fill with black, fill with red, instead of like hashtag FF07DE. Like those don't really make sense. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to a website called colorlovers.com. Oh, color lovers. I don't know if you've ever been to colorlovers.com. But you can, colorlovers.com is a site where you can upvote color schemes. And it sounds ridiculous, but it's a really nice website to get a set of colors because it gives you the hex codes of beautiful color schemes. You can search whatever you want. What do you want to search? Just say a word out loud. Trucks. Not sure if that's like too abstract. Well, I guess not really abstract, but too different from. So we just scroll down and we'll see that we have ice cream truck. There's a lovely color scheme. You know, what are some of the other ones here? This one, I'm gonna go with city machinery. It's gonna be mine. I guess I need a few more colors to make this work, so I'm gonna have to pick some more colors as it turns out. But I'm gonna go with this one here. You don't have to go to colorlovers.com, by the way. You could do any color scheme you want, but I kind of like this one because if I scroll down, it shows me each individual color, and it gives me the hex code or the RGB values for these shades, and they look way better than like what I would have come up with because I'm not an artist. But maybe you know your colors better. So I'm going to steal some of these. This is going to be, I guess this will be my black color. It's going to be a very subtle black. So if I go back, I'm going to store that as my black. So it's hashtag and then that. Oop, that's not it. That color right there. And then white, I'm going to do hashtag and whatever their white was. And you guys can build your own color scheme that way. And so what I'm doing here is I'm making a color palette. This is all the colors I'm going to be using in my project. They're all defined right at the top. Much like, you know, Bob Ross. You guys have seen that awesome show? Yeah, happy. This little tree lives right here. He's got his palette of colors, right, that he's dipping his paintbrush in, and he's like choosing. He's got his burnt sienna, his red ochre. You know, he's got his whole set of colors ready to go to paint with. That's step 1 when you're doing art. Well, it's step 1 here. You can make your palette. So these variables are all here. And then watch how I can use them. I can now use the word white. I can fill with white or black or whatever other things I define. White. Black. And if I run that, then I'll get, you know, these colors instead. And now my code is a lot more self-documenting. Where's my white button versus where's my black button? It's a lot easier to see because it says fill white and then draws an ellipse. Fill black. I could also say like here's the black button, but I almost don't need to anymore because it says black in the code. So what about making these variables, these buttons make it so that the line color changes? So we need one more variable. So in addition to white, black, and any other color, we're also going to need a color variable that we're going to call pen color. And you can start it at any default color. What should be our default color for our pen? Black, sure. So see how I'm not defining a new color. I'm not defining like a new kind of color that I want to use. This is a variable that says, what color am I drawing with? Records that information. And then when I click the buttons, I can set pen color to white, or I can set pen color to black. You guys think you could do that? Yeah? And then, where do you plug it in to affect the line? So why don't I give you a minute just to try that out. See if you can figure it out based on what we were doing in our previous program before we were changing the background color to be a specific color. But now we want to change this variable pen color when we click on the button. So you'll have to use your mouse release function. And how do we use pen color to change the color of this line? So that's my question to you. And here's what you probably could do. You can probably just sit back and wait for me to tell you the answer. But you really won't get as much out of it if you try. It doesn't matter if you succeed or not at this point, by the way. My intention is to give you a chance to try it out so that if you don't get it, you'll have a better appreciation for the answer. If you just watch and don't think about it yourself, you're not going to really learn a whole lot. You'll learn a little bit, maybe, quite possibly, but you'll learn a lot more and remember it a lot better if you try and either succeed, which is great, or fail, and then have sort of an empty hole that will then be an area to plug the answer into. If you're just kind of watching, you don't have an appreciation for the challenge or the issue that's at stake here. So go ahead and give it a try. I'll give you guys 5 minutes. And yeah, sure. Here? All the way? Yeah, feel free if you finish early, if you're like, oh, that wasn't too hard. If you finish early, go and find 6 more colors, and you're going to make a few more buttons that you're going to add to your sketch. And we can start designing our drawing program. Okay? Yeah, so it's not that you didn't hear me, is that you were distracted by something else. So future reference, try to regulate yourself in, like, if I'm kind of moving on, like, try to stick along. I get it, though. It's kind of hard to sometimes do that at all times. So I'll just remind you what I'm asking you guys to do. We've made this pen color variable. It's going to store what color we're drawing with. Right now it's black. That's the color we're drawing with. Well, actually, it's not affecting anything. So you got to figure out, when you click these buttons, how do you change that variable? So if I click on this button, how do I make pen color white? If I click on this one, how do I make it go back to black again? So that's sort of the task at hand. And then I guess the second part of that is, how do I actually make this variable color that line? How do I change the color of the line to be the color that's stored inside of this color? But it's a variable, so it can change. Just like x isn't always going to be 0, it can increase or decrease. So how do you change a variable? I know it's a color variable, but how can you change a color variable to be something different? And it's okay to get it wrong. It's okay to just sit there and be like, I'm not sure where to start. But try to get something down. So, for example, you could get the if statement in your mouse release function. You can figure out what that could be. That would be a great place to start if you're not really sure about the color stuff. Think about, well, what would, in my mouse released, how would I know if I'm clicking in this circle? That would be a good place that would sort of call back to last day's lesson. And if you can't quite get the color thing, stay tuned, we'll get it together. And there you go, that's a turtle. Beautiful. We can't all be good at drawing. No, it's not bad. It's not bad. Very thin-legged turtle. I'm going to let the video keep going. So if you're watching, it's going to be a few minutes until we're done. Just to let you know, you might have to scrub ahead. And I'll let you guys just kind of ponder that for a bit before we take a look at the answer. I'm going to fill up my water bottle. I'll be right back. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, so like I have some circles that I have on my screen. I want to make a clickable. I want to click on that and then start drawing. Then it will go. Whatever the button is. Yeah, so if I click the button and then go to, if I click the white button and then go to draw. Oh, okay. Anyway, so you don't have process on top. So I guess you might be to the window behind that if you're trying to click that one. This could be referred to YouTube. Basically, we made that sketch. The mouse drawing thing is still on the screen there. Wow, I'm trying to be honest. All that sketch is really two circles and that mouse press. Get it. Yeah. Yeah, it's probably like the word pen color isn't a special variable. You have to use it somewhere. Think about what function changes the color of line, and then you could use that as the parameter of that function. So that's not enough. No. So we're sort of changing the color. That's called pen color, but the pen color isn't a special variable. Right? It's not pink. It doesn't actually change anything. But you can use it with a function that changes the color of lines. Think about how you colored lines in your first project. That might help you. Yeah, you bet. And hi, thanks. Yeah, you put in a background, so it's erasing the drawing as you go. So you can remove the background. And then if you're ever curious, like, hey, is my brackets correct? There we go. Yeah. So if you go back to your code for a second, if you press Control T, it'll line everything up so you can see like if you're in the right place. So I think that's okay. If mouse press is all sort of the draw function, that was good as far as I can tell. I think it was correct. Yeah. Okay. Thank you. Okay, folks, we don't have a huge amount of time left, so I'm going to go ahead and do the answer with you guys. If you figured out how to at least get your buttons clickable, that's great, but if you didn't get the color changing, then totally understandable. So let's do it. So first of all, I'm going to make my buttons clickable. I have 2 ellipses, and I got to just make my if statement. So that's going to go in mouse released. I just want to call attention for a moment that we're doing kind of mouse interactions in 2 different places. Notice that the if mouse pressed like line drawing thing, notice that's in the draw function, but the clicking on buttons, that's in the mouse released function. So just notice that there's 2 separate places where we're interacting with the mouse. And that's intentional. That's good. So now, mouse release is all about clicking on buttons, right? That's what we're doing here. So let's do it. So we'll do, if we're clicking on my buttons, I'm going to say if the distance between the center of the white button and the mouse is less than the radius of the button, then I want to do something with that. And if you said set pen color to, say, white, for example, or whatever color is that button, then that's correct. That's the right answer. So good job. And then my second button is black. So I'm going to say if distance between 100, 100, mouse X, oh no, it's 100, 250 for me. This is my black button. Is less than 50. Then set pen color to black. I pardon my American spelling of color, by the way. Processing just spells it that way because it was invented in America, so we just can't really win. I suppose my variable doesn't have to be American spelling, but I don't want to confuse myself or other people with it. Anyways, this is correct, and you might have done that and noticed if you go to run this, it doesn't really make a difference, right? I click on white and I still draw black. I still draw the same color. So it's not that this is wrong, it's just that you actually have to go use the pen color variable somewhere. Pen color isn't one of these pink variables. It isn't automatically going to change the color of anything. So we have to plug it into a function that changes the color of lines. So here's my question to you folks. What function changes the color of lines? Thanks, Sharon. Stroke, you got it. So if I was to add in, right before I draw my line here, if I was to add in, say, stroke, pen color, then I could change the color of stroke and make it draw a pretty line. You could put it outside the if statement too. We'll have something funny that happens, and I'm looking forward to it. Let's do it. I'm gonna click on the white button. Watch what happens to all the lines in the whole program. Boop, they all turned white. But I'm drawing white. Woo! And if I click on the gray, oh look, all the lines in the program turn gray. And now I'm drawing gray, or black, I guess. Woo! So it's a little bit goofy. So let's fix it. How can we fix it so that these ones don't have a pen color stroke? Like it's not changing. Yeah, Mark. You could put either no stroke, yeah, above. But you could be specific with what the stroke is for this ellipse, right? This ellipse, why is it getting pen color? Well, if you say stroke pen color, then everything after it's going to be drawn with that stroke. So what's after it? Well, when the draw function finishes, it comes back around to the beginning again, right? It's looped. So it should have some kind of a stroke here. Whatever you want. You can do no stroke. Or you could say stroke black, whatever you want. Stroke 0. And then this is the stroke that will be used to draw your circles. And then we'll switch over to the pen color to be the stroke for our line. See how that works, folks? So now it's black all the time. If I click white, oh, that changes that. If I click the gray, it changes. And my buttons are working. So I'll just reiterate one more time what the game plan is. We've got 15 minutes left in class to sort of solve those issues. So take a look up here. If you're not getting those things, let me help you right now. So the first step was we made some color variables. And you're going to make 6 more on top of white and black. And there should be a button that will correspond to each of those colors so you can select those colors you chose. And there's a final 7th color variable that does not represent a color in your palette, but it is the color that you've selected, the color that you've dipped your brush in, if you will, if you were Bob Ross, before you paint your happy little tree. So the pen color, I just assigned to black, white, red, whatever it's going to be. That variable itself doesn't have any special meaning just because I called it pen color. The computer's not like, oh yeah, you're making a drawing program. It's just like 100101110. So it doesn't really care what that word is, unless it's a pink variable, in which case there is some built-in thing that it does. But it's not pink, right? That is black, pen color. So we have to give it meaning. The way we give it meaning is we embed it in a stroke function. The stroke is what colors lines. And so now this line is that color, whatever pen color is, because stroke colors lines. Last but not least, we made our mouse release function using what we learned last class about clicking on buttons. We learned that we can make that code assign values to pen color. So when we click on the white circle, the pen color turns white. We click on the black circle, the pen color turns black. And at this point, I'm going to probably stop and just let you know how we're going to start this assignment, because you might get started. If you could get all 8 buttons done now, wow, that would be amazing. But check it out. You're going to design your own drawing program. You can put those wherever you want, but I recommend clustering them together in some way. So put them all down the left, or all down the right, or all down across the bottom, or all across the top. Put all those circle buttons that you're going to make to select colors, put them all in some place. You might want to make your screen a little bit bigger to give yourself more room to draw in as well. So feel free to make your size of your drawing sketch program, whatever you want to call it, a wider thing so you have more room to draw cool pictures in. And if you can get those 8 buttons done, that's great. But do choose sort of a place for them to live. And I don't care where you choose, that's up to you. I've had students even design like Bob Ross inspired things where they have like a circle in the bottom and the circles are in a circle, like along an arc or something like that. And if you want to do that, that's totally fine. It's up to you. I'll leave you to decide. Do leave some room, though, because we're going to add in some more buttons. So just be aware that there will be at least an open button, a save button, a new button for clearing the screen. There will also be potentially a stamp button where you can click on a picture and you click and you'll stamp that picture all over the place. So leave yourself some space for additional features in the coming weeks as we build this sketch project, okay? But for now, it would be great if you made a slightly bigger sketch and made some buttons kind of in one of the areas of the screen, your choice. Thanks, folks. I'll stop this video now. Bye, watchers on the internet.